Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we are kicking off another little mini-series on the channel, looking at the relationship between Lion L. Johnson and Konrad Curze, as we begin with their reunion in the Horus Heresy. A spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the Warhammer 40,000 Horus Heresy short story, Savage Weapons, by Aaron Dembski-Bowden. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first, without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, now this was a topic I was planning on starting on Monday, but with the battle forces being announced over the weekend, I just wanted to cover those first for anyone who may have missed it. Now, L. Johnson and Konrad's rivalry through the Heresy is definitely one of the more prominent ones. Their final duel absolutely worthy of being considered among the very best. And in fact, the two clashed multiple times throughout the Heresy, with L. Johnson seemingly obsessed with his hunt. Was it all simply L. Johnson's personality that led him to such lengths? Or his duty to the Emperor? Or was it as a result of Konrad's actions? Or something else entirely? Well, that's what I want to try and get to the bottom of over the next few discussions. So, at the onset of the Heresy, Lion L. Johnson quickly moved against the forces of the War Master, denying him possession of the Forge World Diamut, securing its powerful siege weapons, and ensuring Horus would never be able to bring them to bear against the Imperial Palace. A masterstroke of tactical manoeuvring in truth. Unfortunately, in L. Johnson's desire to become the Emperor's new War Master, he would almost immediately barter the weapons away to his brother Perturabo, in return for his support in the War Master debate. Alas, Perturabo, of course, was already secretly sworn to Horus's side. L. Johnson was made a fool of. In the aftermath, L. Johnson and his legion would attempt to reach the throne world, but be unable to do so due to the warp storms plaguing the galaxy. And it would be here that Horus would dispatch Konrad Curze to face L. Johnson upon the distant eastern fringe. Konrad's objective twofold. One, to stop L. Johnson from continuing his attempts to reach the throne world, and two, to stop the region's forge worlds from being able to supply Rogel and the Imperial war effort. And so Konrad unleashed devastation across the eastern fringe, in a war that would become to be known as the Framus Crusade. Now, this wasn't simply the Night Lords and Konrad running from L. Johnson. It was, in actual fact, the Night Lords and their Primarch doing what they do best, what they were made for, emerging from the shadows and fighting only when they chose. In the Lion's own words within the short story Savage Weapons, we catch their fleets as often as they catch ours. For 26 months I have chased him. For 26 months he has fled from me, burning worlds before we arrive, crippling supply routes, annihilating Mechanicum outposts. Every ambush we plan, he slips from our fingers, wriggling away unseen. For every victory we claim, Curze gifts us with a loss in return. It is not a hunt. And you can see here L. Johnson's frustration, his disgust that he's been unable to ensnare Konrad, bring him to battle as he would wish to. But it's also clear he realizes this is entirely Konrad's intent. That it's not his brother merely fleeing, panic-stricken. It is entirely and completely a tactic. Konrad's strength, For every victory we claim, Curze gifts us a loss in return. It is not a hunt. So we can see, at this point, it is not the huntsman of Caliban dominating El Johnson's mind. It's very much the Primarch, the leader of the First. A man who knows this entire conflict, crusade, war, revolves around the two of them. That it's far greater in scope, but they are the core, the crux, much like the heresy at large. El Johnson knows he and Curze are all that matters. The heresy, as ever, a grand family drama. And Curze would leave a message for his brother to find on a deep space beacon, requesting a meeting between them on a world named Sagulausa. And despite expecting an obvious trap, El Johnson would go. And so, accompanied by their honour guard of 2, the Primarchs would come face to face once again upon the surface of Sagulausa, the Night Lord's adopted home. My brother, hissed Konrad Curze, Lord of the 8th Legion. His was a viper's smile, just as predatory, just as brazen in its hunger. I have missed you. The lion hesitated. He raised his hands to his collar and pulled the helmet free. An expression of naked surprise marked his features, yet his face was still an angel's countenance, not the beatific, handsome lies of ancient religious myth, but rather the truth of Terran artistry. A face that could have been shaped from tanned marble, emerald eyes with soulful depths, contrasted by a mouth that would forever struggle to show emotion. To Corswain's eyes, Curze was pathetic, ghoulish in comparison. A wretched husk facing a Night Lord, claws against a prince's sword. Curze, the lion asked, his resonant voice softened by disbelief. What has happened to you? It's not often you hear or see Lionel Johnson surprised. Yet here, it's undeniable, he is. Shocked at what's become of his brother. The degeneration of the tortured, yet always noble Primarch. Into the nigh-on living corpse before him. A relic of old night. It's really El Johnson's first glimpse of the tragedy of the heresy. Sure, he's been in conflict already, been betrayed by Perturabo, but Perturabo was still himself, the brother as El Johnson would expect him. This is not Konrad as the Lion knew him. And when El Johnson can't hide his emotion, well then you know that is profound. That could very well be the moment El Johnson begins to look at Konrad as something other than the brother he remembers. However, the two would continue their conversation. The Night Lord ignored the question, speaking with insincerity rich enough to make Corswain's teeth ache. Thank you for coming. How it warms my heart to see you. The lion drew his blade in a slow, clean movement. He neither brought it on guard, nor threatened the other Primarch. Instead, he clutched it in both black gauntlets, the crosspiece hilt before his face, as he stared at Curze above the Quillians. I will ask you this once, and once only. Why did you betray our father? I would ask you something in return, brother, Curze answered with a grin, his filed teeth on display. The clawed Primarch's eyes were unhealthily bright, rich with a secret sickness. Why did you not? The lion lowered his blade to end the salute, knightly respects now paid. Our father has charged me to take your head back to terror. Our father said nothing, for he hides within his dungeons, collecting the secrets of the universe and sharing them with no one. Lorgar and Magnus have seen everything our father sought to hide, so do not carry a precious little lie as your shield, Lion. You are Dawn's hound, running here to the eastern fringe because he ordered you. Curze licked his filed teeth. Come, brother. Let us at least do one another the service of being honest. I know Dawn. The Night Lord gave his cadaverous smile again. He sent you to do that which he feared to try himself. I did not come to duel with words, Konrad. I came to end this crusade. The Night Lord shook his head, his pallid face grey in the weak moonlight. His lips were the only colour on his visage, and even then they were a bloodless blue. Speak with me, brother. Listen, reply in kind, and then decide if we must continue this war. You will not sway me with your traitor's tongue. Curze nodded, utterly unsurprised. His vile facade cracked for a moment, revealing the warrior he'd once been. Perhaps never pure, never free of torment, but capable of emotion beyond this condescending bitterness. The strained lines of pain faded from his brow, and the serpent sneer left his lips. His voice was still raw, still ruined, but now carried an edge of sorrow. I know. So what harm is there in speaking together this one last time? It's quite a poignant moment here between the two. A fleeting glimpse or echo of the Primarch Konrad used to be. The Primarch we would all love to see more of. And it all kind of gives a hint of the two having at least a cordial relationship previously. Konrad letting the mask of attitude drop for one final conversation. It's a bit surprising considering this is two Primarchs renowned for not being liked by their brothers. For different reasons of course, but still. Sure, it could simply be a Primarch's respect, the two each recognising what this heresy means and represents. The end of the galaxy as the Primarchs know it. The end of the dream. And it most likely is that. But I don't know. I definitely feel a little unexpected respect between the two. Something more than just simply being Primarchs. The Lion's clear shock at Curze's appearance, for example. And then Konrad's appeal to talk. And it being accepted by L. Johnson. It's very contrasting to what their relationship will become. That eventual duel in Ultramar, where the Lion will break the Night Haunter's back across his knee. Here, it's far more civilized, at least at first. But so the two would talk, in private, alone, the words exchanged unknown. All we do know is what we hear when they return. Curze claiming Horus himself asked him to speak those words. So you can imagine it was some form of appeal, a request for the famed Lord of the First to join the War Master's side, most likely relaying the respect that Horus had for L. Johnson. But of course it would be rebuffed, rejected. Curze shrugged, the barest rise of one shoulder guard. You will never reach Terra in time to defend it, brother. The warp will not let you. This crusade will not let you. I will not let you. Do you think the archives of future generations will look upon you kindly for your absence? Curze paused in his diatribe, wiping away a fresh trickle of blood. Or will the human descendants of this Imperium look to your legend and whisper of doubt? Will they ask why you were not present to defend the throne world, and speak likely lies that perhaps the Lion was not as loyal and true as the mighty perfect Rogel dawn. Perhaps the lion and his dark angels waited in the deepest reaches of space, watching, listening, and deciding to join the fight only when an obvious victor emerged. The Night Lord's eyes glinted again, with both amusement and sorrow. That is your fate, Lion. That is your future. Forgive me, brother. Curze tilted his head. For what? Corswain was watching both Primarchs, yet still never saw what happened. Such was the speed of the Lion's movements. One moment the two brothers were speaking, the Lion's features cast down in contemplation, Curze's eyes fever bright as he promised an ignoble fate. The next, Curze's features twisted into a taut rictus of pain, blood running between his clenched teeth. The Lion held tight to the grip of his blade, buried to the hilt in his brother's stomach. More than a meter of shining, blood-stained steel thrust from the back of Curze's armour. For such a dishonourable blow, the Lion whispered into Curze's pale, bleeding face. I do not care who knows the truth now, tomorrow, or in 10,000 years. Loyalty is its own reward. That line will forever give me chills. I do not care who knows the truth now, tomorrow, or in 10,000 years. Loyalty is its own reward. I've said it a bunch over the years, but as a kid who grew up with 2nd edition, all we ever had was the mystery of the Lion's actions in the Heresy. The teases that he appeared to have sat it out, waiting to see who won, that we really didn't know what was going to happen with him in the Heresy series. And then it was all answered with this moment. Simply spine-tingling. It really was. But as for El Johnson and Konrad's rivalry, this is really where it all begins. With the Lion burying his sword through his brother's stomach. Now as a Primarch, Curze is able to fight back despite the wound. His Emperor-created body working to heal the damage. But Curze is obviously reeling, on the defensive, working hard to deflect the Lion's relentless blows. And we get an admission here from El Johnson, that he used to consider Konrad his truest brother, with only the two of them growing alone, apart from civilization. And Konrad was obviously surrounded by the civilization of Nostramo, but I guess I do kind of see what El Johnson's talking about here, as Konrad was truly alone, surviving off eating rats more often than not, watching, observing the people around him from the shadows, growing up with only his own mind and judgment to guide him, being plagued by visions of a future he didn't know. And perhaps that revelation gives us a little explanation for El Johnson's reaction earlier, that there was indeed a trace of kinship with Konrad that he never quite had with any of his other brothers. And so when you realise that, you begin to view their ensuing rivalry, as epic as it would be, as a little sad. That these two brothers, who never quite fit in, who shared a bond with each other in a way, despite their differences, ended up at each other's throats. But as the two continued to duel, Curze would catch the Lion's blade amid his claws, and the two would be reduced to brawling amid the mud, with Curze ultimately gaining the upper hand, strangling his brother, and smashing his head against the ground over and over again. And it would take the intervention of Corswain to save his Primarch, driving a sword into Curze's back, with the encounter ending as both fleets deployed their forces to the world below, as both Primarchs, bloodied ruins, were dragged apart by their sons. And so this would be where it all began, the rivalry that would continue for most of the Heresy. We'll see how their interactions change as we move forward, but you can quite clearly tell this was a pivotal, changing moment, a time and place where a line was crossed, where whatever respect, whatever kinship they may have once had, was well and truly left behind, where El Johnson's utterance of loyalty is its own reward became a vow, and where he quite possibly decided that loyalty was more important than anything else for the Emperor. But as always everyone, what do you think? Were you surprised by the interaction between the two Primarchs here? Was El Johnson's reaction of shock unexpected? His revelation of kinship? And what about Curze's clear sorrow? And what were the words in private that he imparted to El Johnson? What was the message of Lupercal? And was it the Lion's loyalty, his dishonourable blow, that was the moment he placed his history behind him, where he decided he would do whatever it took for his father? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.